Gifted and neurodivergent people in the workplace dealing with emergencies. Hi, friends, it's Diane here at Someone Gets Me, and today we're going to talk about a topic very close to my heart. See, for many years, I have been in employment situations where emergencies and crises were very common. In some cases, I was running a suicide prevention hotline. I have been the director of treatment centers where there was all kinds of situations. And I've been in personal situations where I was helping a friend or another person through very serious crises. And I work with gifted people and I watch how we roll. I watch how we do it. And so I have some tips for you in the business world, especially, even if your family is your business, right? To be sure that we take care of ourselves when there's a crisis emerging or a crisis happening, because we are really good at rising to the occasion. In fact, at one point, I was doing a psychiatric triage in an emergency room. And all the people around me, though we didn't say, oh, we're all gifted, we were, because we were very smart, very quick to make decisions, very decisive, intuitive to the sense where we could know what was going to happen before it was going to happen so we could offset additional situations. And so all of us had that common ground where we rose to the occasion in emergencies or in crises of some kind. Now, that's a great asset to have because we need to have that for first responders, for people who do the kind of work that I do, and other people where we're dealing with humans. Because see, humans, we're not machines. We are real amazing creatures. And our amazing creatureness, I don't even know if that's a word, but anyway, our amazing creatureness means that we just don't have issues, or we just don't have trouble, or we just don't have crises between like 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. In fact, one of the reasons why I do my work on a monthly retainer is so that the people I work with who are gifted and often neurodivergent need to have somebody in their corner on a Sunday or a Saturday, or maybe in the evening or outside of the session times, because we are the ones who typically rise to the occasion. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because there's an aftermath to that. There's a fallout to that, right? Because when we rise to the occasion and our adrenaline is going and we're problem solving and we're figuring out things and we're doing things, you can relate. I'm sure you can. What happens next? When the dust all settles, whether it's later in the same day or the next day, or even 2 or 3 or 4 days later, there is this decompression, I call it. We often get tearful or maybe cry or maybe get anxious, and all the wave of emotion hits us, kind of like a tsunami. Sometimes people make really poor decisions in that moment because they think they've done something wrong. And what I want to tell you is you've not done anything wrong. When we rise to the occasion and we let adrenaline help us be the leader and the strong person in a time where it's very much needed, there is always the rebound. There is always that aftermath. There is always that time where we need to calm down and let ourselves have the emotions, where the adrenaline comes down and the crisis in our own body comes down, and we're able to feel our emotions again. And sometimes we cry, sometimes we have to work out, all of those different things. That's a normal part of the process. Because see, our neurology is built to be at peace most of the time, with spikes of stress and then down with a recovery time to keep on going. However, we live in a culture that's full of spiky stress with not a whole lot of recovery time. So when something really big happens, or very urgent, like a life-threatening situation with a friend or colleague or something, right? Like I was in a restaurant one time and somebody was choking, and somebody I was with gave the person Heimlich maneuver, and it saved the day. And that my friend was really in it and was problem solving and all over it. But then what happened was 2 days later, he was really upset. He felt the upset and the fear and all the emotion around the event 2 days before. It's very common to have that happen. So that's why it's important that we have support groups, that we have people in our corner who will listen and hear us and sit with us while we have our experience, knowing that it's part of the process. So we have a big spike up and then we're going to come down. And that's how everyone does it. But if you're gifted, and you're an empath or you're intensely sensitive, you're going to feel it even stronger. And there's nothing wrong with that. What's right about it is the fact that you can rise to an occasion in a very effective, calm, powerful manner. What's also right about it is you can intensely feel all your emotions in a way that serve you if you let it. So we buy into the cultural idea that we're all fixed beings and we're not allowed to have all these waves of emotion and we're not allowed to have different experiences. We get ourselves in trouble, right? Because that's not how it is. For neurodivergent and gifted people, we feel things very intensely, and we will be the first ones on the scene often. And we're also the ones that everyone thinks, oh, they're so strong, they've got it. And no one seems to look back to say, how you doing today? What's going on? So I try to make a point of that in my own world, of making sure that people around me who I know are really empathic or intuitive or sensitive or gifted in any way, if they're going through a hard time or they're helping someone else go through a hard time, that I check in with them. Like, how you doing? You helped out this situation. How are you today? And maybe do that for a few days and do that with yourself, right? In the business world, it's very important because in every business that I know of, there are the mundane, easy tasks, and we all can keep on going and everything's fine. And then there's also those things that create a crisis or an emergency or something urgent happens. It may be about a project or a job or another person, but still something happens. And we rise to the occasion and we take care of whatever it is. And there's always an aftermath. We either get really tired, we need to sleep more, we need to meditate more, we need to make sure we're eating even better than we normally do. All of those self care things that can sometimes get put aside when you're neurodivergent need to come front and center. What are you doing to sleep? What are you doing to rest? Are you eating the right food? Are you supporting yourself emotionally and spiritually and mentally? Are you allowing others to support you? Are you able to ask for what you need? All of those things are so important because we feel so deeply. Now, if you're one of those people who's very intuitive too, you're going to be able to see things as they're happening and be able to kind of know what to do next. And then when you're decompressing, it's important to kind of bring yourself back to center and say, okay, this is here and now. This is what's happening here and now. This is here and now. Draw yourself back. So, some tips you might have if you're the person who is that neurodivergent gifted person in a business situation or a family situation that's rising to the occasion, and you feel that kind of that letdown, if you will. Afterwards, a few things you can do would be to journal and just write out all the experience, write out your feelings, write out what's happening with you on the inside. Another thing you can do, which I find to be very helpful personally, is I get a blank piece of paper and with my non-dominant writing hand, I put a crayon or a marker in it, something like that. And I just start doodling and drawing and allowing that non-dominant part of me to have a voice that doesn't necessarily have to have words. Maybe it's color, maybe it's, what the doodle is or those kinds of things. And just let the creative expression show up. Now, I work with songwriters and musicians a lot in my work. And one of the things people who are really good at that and enjoy songwriting and doing music is to allow it to come through their music. Write a song about your experience in the crisis, not about the crisis content. It's more about what's your heart going through, what's happening with you on the inside while these things on the outside are happening. Because, see, that's a universal truth. We all can jump in and help something very important. And then when it all settles down, go, that was a really big deal. Now, that's also why sometimes people who are first responders or always in the middle of crises can kind of look like they're not human anymore, where they don't really have a lot of feelings or kind of shut down. That's because too much, too quick with no self-care. No self-care, specifically emotionally. Because sometimes if you're dealing with a lot of trauma and death and issues and anger and things, you have to defend yourself in order to stay alive and in order to keep doing your work. So there's nothing wrong with that. Be aware. that too much of shutdown might negatively impact other parts of your life. So, because you're very good at problem solving, at helping other people, at being the one that can make decisions in a decisive manner, because you're good at that, doesn't mean that you neglect yourself. It doesn't mean that you need to become hardened. In fact, my whole career has been around different kinds of crises at different times, sometimes in parts of it different than others, but still it's always been there. And still today it happens. So it's important that we pay attention to our self-care. So here are some things you can do. One is spend quiet time 3 times a day, not once, not twice, but 3 times, morning, noon, and night. Just stop for a minute, 15 minutes, and just stop. Come off screens. Don't talk to anybody for a minute. Just breathe. Connect with your heart, connect with your body, and say, okay, here I am. 3 times a day. I tend to do early morning, in the evening before bed, and then sometime in the midday, like around 1 o'clock or something. But the times don't matter as much as that, a little time in between. Another thing you can do is be sure that you're fully hydrated and you have enough minerals in your system. Our diet in the United States is grossly deficient in minerals. So make sure you have a mineral supplement. I use Water Drop, and there's lots of different kinds of things where you can get extra minerals as you're drinking your water, and it helps support your body's connectivity. And then make sure that you're really aware of who your multiple peer groups are. Who are the people that you can call and speak to and that will understand? Who are they? And do they know that if you call to talk about a crisis or a situation that you're kind of coming down from, that they only need to listen? And if you want feedback, then you must ask for it. Because one of the things that's very important for gifted and neurodivergent people to understand about our support is that we only want advice and feedback if we ask for it, directly or indirectly. And so we want to make sure that the people we call understand that. And so that often takes building a relationship beforehand that sets the stage. So in a business sense, I work in careers where there's a lot of ups and downs and things happening. And so if somebody calls me or talks to me and wants to talk about a situation, I always say, well, how do you want me to listen? Am I listening as a friend just to hear you, or do you want feedback? Because it's going to be a different response from me. And it's okay to ask if somebody's approaching you. It's also okay for you to share that if you're approaching someone else. So when I call somebody and say, I really need to talk about whatever it is, I'll say, I just need you to listen. I don't need you to fix it. Or I might say, I really need your input or feedback on this. Or I might say, can you help problem solve it with me? Can we help, have a brainstorming minute about it? Then when I'm sharing whatever the content is, the listener knows how to listen and what it is I would like. It's very important when it comes to our communication in our lives to be clear about what we're seeking from the other person. And if you're the listener, to be clear about what that person is seeking from you. Because so many times I see it, you think the other person automatically knows, but they don't. I can't tell you the thousands of times that's happened to me where somebody thought that they knew what I wanted and they were wrong. Not because they were trying to be, not because there was something not okay. What it was they thought they knew, but they didn't know. So we don't know until we check it out. So always ask. You can ask in a polite way, right? But I think it matters a lot. So when it comes to business and it comes to crisis, the gifted people, the ones who are the good problem solvers that are quick to respond, usually the ones who step in and take care of things. And they still need to decompress. So if you're the person on your team that's always doing that, that's the one that's stepping in the urgent crisis, we got to get it done situation, understand you have emotional needs too. If you're the leader of these people and you have somebody on your team and you're the leader and somebody on your team is the one who's always stepping in when there's a crisis or something going on, then pay attention and make sure that person has adequate and proper time to debrief and calm down and come back into their own as the day or the event moves forward. Good leaders pay attention to their employees because, after all, your employees are your boss. So when you have a title of leadership, of any kind of leader, like you're in the C-suite or you're a program director or you're a manager, anybody that you technically supervise in this business world, they're your boss. It's not the other way around. They're your boss. So it's up to you to take care of them in that sense, paying attention to who they are and what they need. Recently, I know somebody who had a very significant loss in their family, and it was very unexpected. And this particular person, who is gifted and neurodivergent, didn't handle it very well after the crisis, handled the crisis, and then was having a real struggle afterwards. Well, that person's manager in their job was very insensitive to them and was basically like, I know you're back, but you have to do it now. And was very, the person described it as kind of rude and curt. It was not respectful of the sensitivity and the gravity of the situation emotionally. And that is a misuse of power. That is being insensitive to another human being. And so now this person who had just had this major loss now also has more loss because somebody that this person trusted, their boss, was unkind and didn't live up to the idea that your employees are your boss. So I think it's important that we pay attention to the human needs and the human desires and how we, as humans, go through our world. So if you're the person handling the crisis, make sure you have downtime for yourself to come back to your own self, right? If you're the manager of somebody who is really good at handling crisis, who's that doer, go person, please respect them and please understand that there's a price they pay for that. And so by allowing them the time to decompress, the time to come back to themselves, and the time to process whatever they need to process is vital to their health and well-being and the health and well-being and success of your organization. Because after all, we're human beings, not human doings, right? So I hope this has helped. I hope maybe it's jogged some of your memory or maybe it's reminded you of amazing things. But I think that when we really pay attention to neurodivergent people in the workplace, as leaders, it's our responsibility to know who our neurodivergent folks are and be there in a supportive manner in a way that works for them. So we might need to ask them about that. If you're the leader and you're neurodivergent, it's also important to let the people who you manage know how you process things and what goes on, and have the people who you report to, or whoever they are, understand your unique, amazing gifts and talents and what is needed to keep you in harmony, to keep you aligned, to keep you moving forward in a way that is successful and satisfactory. So as always, I hope this episode's helped you or reminded you something amazing that you already know. And you can find my email in the show notes, as well as a way to make a free 30-minute call with me to chat about this or whatever you want. What I really want in the world is for all of us to know that you have somebody who supports you. So here at Someone Gets Me, I, Diane, support you. So until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, remember to put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You are here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there, let your light shine, and enjoy your life in ways you could never imagine, because you are perfect, whole, and complete. Until the next episode, be well.